Are
She's there. She just doesn't want to be on camera.
we are now live.
Start recording.
So go ahead and take it away.
All right, welcome to Threads of Wisdom, third discussion for this week. We are on the Wheel of the Year. I am Zeta Stardust, or as you can see in the chat, I think it's Madhouse, which I got to figure out my Teams account because it's being putsy, but I can't do that tonight. So just so you know, a little bit of background info on the Threads of Wisdom's discussions. The Threads of Wisdom was created by the Golden Thread Grove in Idaho. It is a teaching tool for your year-in-a-day pagan basics. Each week that you attend, you will receive an image of the topic we discuss. Golden Thread Grove has requested that these images not be distributed to anyone that has not participated in a discussion on a particular topic. At the end of the year, you will have 52 cards that can be used as a divination tool. Any questions there? So first things first, I'm going to share our image. If I can remember how to do that. I've done it before. It doesn't mean I actually remember how to do it.
So at the top of the screen, the arrow pointing up.
Yep, I figured it out. So can you guys see that image? All right.
Yes,
So what we're going to do now is just discuss our initial reactions, the initial things you think when you see that image. Anyone? Anyone have any thoughts?
When I look at it, I get the feeling of the fates and the one that cuts the cord. I always forget her name.
Yeah, I don't remember the name either, but yeah, it's very much with that spinning wheel and the measure and.
Kind of reminds me of Frigg.
I always kind of wonder a little bit like, because this, and it's, if anyone who's attended the discussions with me over time would know that not everyone agrees with what images are chosen for each particular picture. There's generally a couple people on each week that are like, that's not what I would have picked, but it's trying its best. So I do kind of wonder why they chose like a spinning wheel for the Wheel of the Year, because you could use other things, right, rather than a spinning wheel.
Yeah, it reminds me of like spinning and weaving, and then that reminds me of my patron goddess, which is Athena. So crafting and spinning and weaving and how like we're constantly weaving our web together of information. Like even now we're weaving a web of information and our magic together. In that year of that Wheel of the Year, we're constantly weaving our magic together during that wheel.
And I think one of the things with the Wheel of the Year, and why it would be a wheel, not necessarily a spinning wheel, but a wheel of some sort, because it is always that revisitation of the cycle. Things are repeated, but it's never quite the same, but it's, you go through the same thing every year. You go through the same thing every year. So that's one thing I think of there. What about the colors? Is there a color that stands out to anyone?
The orange. I don't know why, but I was really drawn to the orange of the wheel.
There's no wrong answers on any of this, so it's just curious as to if anyone noticed or had a specific.
Hello, Sammy.
Yeah, I think the inside of the wheel, the colors on the inside of the wheel almost look like the rays of the sun
Yeah, it looks
and the
like it's-
color of the sun, like fire and the sun coming out.
That's
Yep.
exactly what that was the sun concept.
Yeah. I also see the colors of like gold and red, and then the colors of blue, the colors of Athens and the Mediterranean. So
All right. So what else? Are there any other associations, not necessarily with the picture, but that you associate with the concept of the Wheel of the Year?
No matter what you're going to do, the wheel is going to continue to spin.
Wheel keeps on turning.
the cycles of life, death, and rebirth.
Yes. What about Sabbats? Does anyone have any associations with Sabbat stuff?
Well, I was trying to count the amount of spokes to see if it lined up with Sabbats or not.
Yes,
Ah,
2, 3, 4,
8.
I think they have 9, so that doesn't work.
It should be.
It should be
I think
8 if
it's
it's
8.
Sabbath orientated, but
They go inside the spokes. So it goes between the spokes when you like write the names or the pictures. The sabbats go between the spokes.
Yeah.
thank you. I did not know that.
Yep. So
Sammy,
it's like a big pie.
Sammy, I see what you put in chat, and that's exactly what I said. Is it reminds me of the Fates.
Hello, Apollo. It's interesting that we have a couple people that immediately drew onto their patron or matron for the deity concepts. I think that's interesting. It kind of goes to show that uniqueness that and the filters and perceptions that we see the world through. In my notes here, there is divine timing is another concept that's associated with this one. Alignment with nature, moving towards goals.
Well,
I definitely. Oh, go ahead.
Well, the concept of the Wheel of the Year is to remind us and those when it was started and used that the cycle of planting and how the god and goddess come up, pass away, renew. And so with it, it would allow to remind us that, it really is a cycled time frame that we deal with. And we've kind of removed ourselves with that in the modern world of being able to go get whatever we want, whenever we want. But the Wheel of the Year was to remind us that, you know what, even during the dark times, the light will be coming and vice versa. So never forget and never be unprepared.
I would say that, yeah, they want us to get it back to the wheel and living off the land to a certain extent. Because I think that there are some modern things that make things much easier for us. But I think that we are out of balance currently. And that would be another thing with the wheel. If you've ever tried to roll a wheel that's like egg-shaped and a little off balance, it's not pleasant, right? So let's see what else here in my notes. So a pagan celebrate 8 holy days or Sabbats. What about some of the concepts between like a dark half of the year and a light half of the year? Such as in this note, it says, some say the Lady of Life rules in the spring and summer, and some say the Lord of Death and Resurrection are fall and winter. Others say that the divine son is born of the great mother at Yule, lies in ecstasy with the young goddess at Beltane, and sacrifices himself in life's cause at Lammas. So what about that? And those associations?
Well, it's the concept of the Oak King and the Holly King on the male side. One is, the young and youthful and the fun-loving, where the other one is the old and wise and preparations. And there was a time and a place for all of that, and we need to remind ourselves that have fun when you can, because there's times of the year where you can't. You got to bog down and just survive.
So yeah, that's there too, though. King, Holly King type of thing. It also says, because there's a couple of different schools of thought, but they're all very similar, aren't they? The goddess returns at Imbolc, and if fertile, she is fertile during Ostara. The god and goddess wed during Beltane. Goddess is pregnant during Litha and gives birth during Lammas, and then descends to the underworld at Samhain. So it's different concepts that all essentially encompass the same thing. Does anyone have thoughts on those? Yes, it's very much the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. Anyone have anything to add? So we have our solar equinoxes, which are spring, Ostara, and fall, the Mabon. And then you have your solstices, which are Litha, midsummer solstice, and the winter solstice, which would be Yule. And then your cross quarter days, which are Imbolc, Beltane, Lammas, and Samhain. And these all encompass, we've mentioned this, the agricultural calendar for harvesting and planting. It definitely does follow an agricultural concept. I live in an agricultural area, and I've read many, many, many blogs where pagans are like, we're so disconnected from everything. And I'm looking around going, but the wheat's ready to harvest, and they're going to be bringing out the combine tomorrow. It works really well for me.
What I was gonna say, and I don't know if anyone touched on this because I was dealing with my food being delivered.
Okay.
But there are a lot of really big themes in the Wheel of the Year. One of them is the journey into the underworld and the return to the overworld, which you kind of touched on when you were talking about Lammas and Ostara, like coming back and being reborn. And then also a really big one is you were talking about the different patterns that are not just in like nature and in the environment, but also in the stars. So we're talking about these agricultural rhythms that are not just informed by how our plants grow, but by how light and the space and cosmos that surrounds us affects us. So, like when we're talking about the solstices, those are days when we have the most sunlight, the least sunlight, or equal, or we have the equinoxes where it's equal night and day. And those are really important days because they mark our journey through the seasons, especially if you live in a not so tropical place like I do. It's a little different of a journey for me. But if you live in a place with all 4 seasons, that's a really good indicator of how the year goes for you. You know, you have this dark half of the year where literally nature is mimicking some of these personal journeys we're going through, where we dive deep into our personal lives. And then in the light half of the year, you focus on the bounty and the gifts that you harvested during that dark half of the year. And you're in the sunlight. And then there's, you know, the cross quarters are really important because they have this really potent astrological energy, which we've talked a little bit about at the seminary during the Wheel of the Year course, where, like, for example, Imbolc is a cross quarter, right? So when we talk about Imbolc, it has a very specific astrological energy that is associated with it being at the height of a specific astrological sign. And that causes it to be a holiday that we celebrate that is ripe with this gestation energy, where like seeds are being planted and they're not quite what they're going to be yet, but we have that planning period where we can put together the seeds that we're going to harvest later so that they can be birthed at Ostara and eventually harvested in the harvests parts of the year. And there's like a ton of other things that you could go into depth with, but the Wheel of the Year provides so much depth in that way that it's not just about the agriculture, but also the rhythms of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And with continuing with what Sammy's saying, when we do our celebrations or our practice work, we're typically working with the moons, which are Espits, but the Wheel of the Year deals more with Sabbats, where it's a time for rejoicing and remembrance and honoring what that time of the year represents, and forgetting about the day-to-day hardships that the Espits are there for.
So I'm going to stop sharing here because we got to see and do that part. And I think that we are actually on to what would you think of if you got that card in a divination?
I think I might be facing coming up to an initiation of sorts.
No, I think that does fit. If that's what you go to for this particular topic, I would feel like that would actually fit very well, because the whole point is the cycle and things keeping to turn. And depending on what the question might be, that could be that you are either in rhythm and things are going well, or it could mean that you are a little out of whack and you need to re-examine and bring things back into balance.
Michelle
Yes, I will share the card again.
When I looked at it, what it tells me is that we weave our own webs, and that we're in the power of controlling of what we want to manifest and what we want to create. We can weave fast, we can weave slow. It's how fast we want to turn that wheel.
There's the picture again.
Touching on that, I also have the sense that, playing back on that like fates representation where you see because it looks like the person who has the thread has like a scissor for hands, and so it just makes me think they're a fate, but that our fate is wound up in the wheel of the year and the journey that takes us through, and that's a reminder of that.
Very much so, because you're not the only one that brought in the fate aspect of it, which is another thing. If we're talking about the divination type of stuff, that fate, I feel like this one is a little bit more dependent on what the question is than some of the other cards have been in the past. They all kind of are dependent on what the question is, but if you were to right now, today, get this card in a reading, what would it be for you if it were today?
What I said.
I'd say, even though my first thought was negative, I'm not in a negative space with my life right now. So I'd say that it's showing that I'm coming into alignment with my destiny by aligning myself with the natural rhythms of the world.
Michelle, Cassandra, anyone else have a comment? Derek?
Yeah. I would say for me, it's saying to continue weaving that wisdom that I have with others. And also, my goddess herself is like screaming at me. I keep telling you, I want you to learn how to weave.
I would have a little bit of I'm crafty, so I would be like, oh, I need to go make something, even though the wheel of the year doesn't necessarily mean making something necessarily. It does, right? Because that's what the cycle leads to, is a life, death, rebirth, a generation, and then a taking, and then a regeneration, and all of that. So it's a creativity and destruction process. So maybe I need to take some time to create something just to rip it up. It's cathartic sometimes, right? Yep, there are no wrong answers. Feel free to share whatever.
Because if you say something, it might trigger something for someone else. And then, you know what, it can get a new conversation, a ball rolling. You'd be amazed how often just the most basic concept or thing gets said, and all of a sudden, 30 minutes later, we've gone down a rabbit hole of awesomeness that none of us had considered.
That was really funny what you said, because it reminded me of like Buddhist monks who make mandalas, like traditional mandalas made out of sand, where they like spend all this time creating this like perfect thing, and then to like honor the impermanence of the beauty of life, they just like blow it away.
Yep.
Yep.
They'll spend 5 years making it and then destroy it in a day.
Like Thanksgiving dinner. Cook all day, eat 15 minutes.
Oh, no. That's like an hour and a half meal. I keep on going. I don't stop. That's an excuse for me to be a glutton, and I don't mind that.
But it's funny because that's immediately where I go to, and that is at more like cultural cycle of a wheel of the year, right? Because Thanksgiving in the States, that's one of the holidays we celebrate. You can also think about Christmas and Yuletide and all the associations that are with that, because like most pagans, they love with the Christmas / Yuletide thing, because there's so many traditions that are interweaved together that it makes it really seamless to go and celebrate with family.
Well, and based on that Thanksgiving concept, it's the Mabon. and Mabon, and that's the witches' Thanksgiving because that's the main harvest. That's when their food is aplenty, and we are supposed to celebrate those concepts, and that is the last, the equinox before we start heading into the dark. So while it has been appropriated here in America with the stories,
and change the date.
yeah,
And the date that Americans use for Thanksgiving doesn't make any sense, even in the historical context. All of it makes no sense. They would not be doing this in November.
no,
They just wouldn't.
nope. Especially in the areas they're in, they'd be getting ready to bunker down because it's getting cold.
Yeah.
Yep. So, if you guys don't celebrate Mabon to the extent, think of it as our ability to indulge and celebrate the last of the cycle before we start bedding down for the next 6 months.
And Samhain is the last and final harvest. I know that at least the Celts held the belief that anything left out was now property of the Fae or the She, and it was no longer fit for human consumption after Samhain. So that was, if it was left on the vine, it was not yours anymore. The spirits have acquired it, or whatever. Different cultures had different things with that. So the feasts, yeah.
Yep.
Apparently, Michelle has a birthday close to Mabon.
No, she's a Samhain baby.
Samhain baby. Got it. Samhain baby. Okay, that's right.
I remember her telling us that last week or the week before that she's a Samhain baby.
That is correct. I'm remembering now that you said something. So do we have any other thoughts? I want to make sure that there's space for everyone to share what they want.
We got another one joining us. So, hello, Jessica. Thank you for joining us. What we're doing is looking at the Wheel of the Year card on screen and commenting if you got that as a one card reading, what it would mean to you.
Hi. I really don't know. I'm very new to all of this, so I just kind of came to hang out and listen and learn a little bit.
Very cool. Well, if something comes to mind, don't mind, you can join in, say it, or type it in chat. And it's just the first impression you get, and just go with it.
Yep.
Okay.
There are no wrong answers. This is very much meant to be a beginner's tool and a beginner's discussion. And yes, Sammy, I agree. There is definitely a little bit of a sense of tradition, particularly if we're going with the spinning wheel. There's, again, it's that disconnect. We don't often think about like where our goods come from in the day and age that we live, because we're a little bit disconnected from where even our clothing comes from. And if we think of the textiles and how that's gone from generation to generation, there is definitely a sense of tradition along with that. Yes, the allergies are not fun today.
Yes. The world of pollen is hitting those who suffer from it really bad.
Alrighty, here I think I'm going to stop sharing here and I'm going to put it into chat.
So for those who are attending for the first time, Madhouse is putting it into the chat. What you can do is click on it and download it. These can be used as divination tools, and you can build a deck with them. We call it a Witchedex, kind of like a Pokédex of Wicca cards. So you can put them into a folder and continue using them going forward. There's 52 of them that will be discussed throughout the year.
I have to remember how to get this part again. I was like, I remembered how to do the screen share, kind of.
So when you're on the image in the screen, you go to the top right, and it will have a share option on the actual image, and then it'll allow you to copy it and then upload it.
That's right. Share.
It might be under your ellipsis and your 3 dots.
It was.
Okay.
There we go. That should give everyone an opportunity to download the image if you are here, and then you can collect your Wikidecks and have your cards that you can use as a divination tool later.
And if for any reason you have issues downloading it, just let us know. Put your email address in the chat, and we will get it emailed to you.
Yes, yes.
And our scribe Zeta should have that information still. Save Sammy from last week if you're having issues again this week.
Okay. Yep, I should.
I got my second shot today, and I'm starting to kick in. I'm starting to get groggy.
My Teams, if you can still hear me, is decided to not respond again. So I'm trying to paste the next bit in.
I had mine on Monday, and I was fine until I got home from work, and now like the arm pain from where my shot was is like, pow.
Was it your first or your second, Sammy?
Second.
Yeah, this was my second as well, and I took a personal day from work tomorrow because the other managers where I work, I told them all, I covered for you guys when you guys got your second shot. I'm taking a personal day, and not one person argued. They're like, yeah, go ahead and do that. You covered all of us. See, I was the opposite, Cassandra. I had no issues on my first one. I had a little bit of a sore muscle. This one, I'm like, I'm starting to feel it, getting a little, little fever, little kind of just floaty.
Yeah, I've only had the first one, and it was just like my arm was a little bit sore. It wasn't even as bad as like a tetanus shot. My last tetanus shot really sucked because my arm, I wasn't able to move it because it was a clinic that the school had done, and they then we had teacher conferences, so I didn't like get to move my arm as much, and it was awful for a week. This one was just sort of tender, but it was fine. We will see how the second one goes next month.
Well, I'll let you know tomorrow how I'm doing at Devo. So you should have a good idea.
I think what I will say is be careful about overusing your arm. I feel like under or overusing your arm after a shot, just like that's what happened to me is I overused it because I kept working because I didn't really have symptoms.
Yeah. Like I said, my first one didn't affect me in the least bit. I got a little bit of a sore muscle for a couple days, but I can deal with that. But after seeing enough people get the second one, I was like, I'm not going to be stupid and overdo it and allow myself to actually have recovery time.
All right. So is there anyone else who was unable to download the image? I'll make notes. I think Sammy's, I should have the email in notes somewheres. All right. So it doesn't look like anyone else needs me to email it to them. So I will go ahead, and I think we're going to wrap this up a little bit early. If we have helped you in any way in facilitating a spiritual experience, Please consider donating to Children of the Crossroads ATC to help us fund events like this. Your gifts of any amount are greatly appreciated, and donations may be tax deductible, as Children of the Crossroads ATC is a 501c3 nonprofit. You can make your donation through PayPal or Venmo, and we appreciate all the little bit. Every little bit adds up. If there is any other thoughts, we have a few minutes that we can add in anything, or we can go for the evening if you don't have anything to talk about.
And if not, remember, we do this every week at this time, 6:30 PST on Wednesdays, and we look forward to having you guys all here. You guys help us learn more and more. Even though we're the ones running it, we actually learn almost more from you guys than we do quote unquote teaching you guys.
It's one of the great things about these discussions is that it's very much a give and take, because there is new stuff that comes up all the time, and
she froze. We may have lost her. She's been having issues with Teams. So what she was saying is, I think she was going with it, is that we gain from all this, and it helps us grow as witches, and it also helps us grow with how to help or inform others going forward to make this more valuable for everyone. Because this is part of the year and a day concept of getting your path started, and to find out if this is right for you or not. And that's why we have these discussions and not teachings. So I will go ahead and wrap this up for us and stop the recording. Obviously, Madhouse is having tech issues. So thank you guys for joining this week. Let me go ahead and stop this.